I'm asking you today to add Wikipedia editing to what you do. A few words about Wikipedia. It's an online encyclopedia. It is almost 20 years old now. It was started in January of 2001. There are 300 languages now of Wikipedia, and that is one reason why today, in the last month, there were 21 billion page views. If you go to wikipedia.com, it will redirect to wikipedia.org. Now, who runs Wikipedia? Well, there's a nonprofit foundation, the Wikimedia Foundation. It has almost 450 employees. Now, you might ask, how can that few people possibly produce all the Wikipedias that are out there? And the reason why they can is that most of the work is done by volunteer editors. The English version of Wikipedia, if you look in the URL at the top of your browser screen, that's a prefix on the wikipedia.org. EN is English, ES, Espanol, etc. The English version, there were in September 132,000 registered people who made at least one update to a Wikipedia article in the prior month. You don't have to register. You can do it anonymously. There are some advantages to registration. There are some caveats as well. Wikipedia strives to be an encyclopedia. It's not a blog. The way it tries to achieve that goal is that there are certain core content policies that are enforced by collaboration among the editors and some AI tools as well. Number one, articles are to be written from a neutral point of view. And what that means is that they should neither sympathize with nor disparage the subject matter. So Mickey, if you're gonna contribute to the Wikipedia article about Donald Trump, you better be very careful what you say. No original research, verifiability, those 2 points go together. This is not a place to enter your own thoughts. Any content submitted into a Wikipedia article should be cited to a credible reference. Now, most of us know that if we're doing academic work, Wikipedia citations to Wikipedia are not acceptable. Okay, that's fine. But Wikipedia is a great place to start, because if an article has been written the way it's supposed to be written, the content will be referenced to sources that you can find there that very likely are going to be valid for your academic work. Now, I'd like to give an example to support my urging you to make yourselves Wikipedia editors. In this symposium in 2018, Marty Levinson made a presentation titled Aldous Huxley and General Semantics. Most of you know something about Aldous Huxley, the author of Brave New World, a Brit who spent the last quarter century of his life in the United States. Well, Marty's presentation was captured on video. You can view it on the Institute of General Semantics YouTube channel. And then in this most current issue of our fine magazine, etc., it was expanded into an article that has even more material and gives 20 references to source material. Now, the content of Marty's article, he gives some striking examples of Huxley's absolute embrace of science insanity as a must-read book. Also, even at the very end of his life, he was touting general semantics as a prophylactic against what he called the absurd and dangerous nonsense within every culture. Now, that I think is what Mickey was trying to talk to us about. As I said, it's a scholarly article with 20 different references. Now, suppose I'm a student and I want to learn a little bit about Aldous Huxley. Where am I going to start? Well, I'm probably going to go to, start with Wikipedia. The Wikipedia article on Huxley, its initial version was put out there just 2 months after Wikipedia started. What's the content of the article? Well, the content of the article, there's information about his association with the Upanishad philosophical group, Vedanta, its use of psychedelic drugs, problems with his eyesight, awards he won, film adaptations of his work and such. I'm not surprised there's nothing in the article that mentions Alfred Korzybski or science insanity or general semantics, but I am surprised that there's nothing in the article that mentions his interest in Western science. And if we go to Marty's article, Marty has a very modest conclusion after presenting tons of documentation, in which Marty writes, Huxley, like Korzybski, wanted people to be aware of the limitations of language and the importance of science. Okay, an edit to the Wikipedia article on Huxley could greatly improve it by noting this dimension of Huxley and what he did and what he was all about. Why bother? Well, one motivation could just be, hey, I'd be raising the quality of an article that people are often reading. In the left-hand margin of every article in Wikipedia, let me go back to the one on Huxley, show you the area I'm talking about. This left-hand column, I don't know if you can see my pointer. If you go down a little way, there's something that says page information. And in page information, one of the entries there is how many people have looked at that article in the last 30 days. Well, for Wikipedia's article on Aldous Huxley, 94,000 people have looked at that in the last 30 days. That number will bounce up and down day to day, usually in the 90,000s somewhere. If we compare that to the exposure that Marty's article got, there were maybe 40 people present at his presentation. The YouTube of the presentation has had about 100 views. Tom might be able to tell us how many people get, etc. I don't know how many have read the article, but I think we could see that we've got many orders of magnitude between Marty's exposure and the exposure here in Wikipedia. Now, I'm not trying to say that we should use Wikipedia to be shills for general semantics. I'm not saying go in and make an edit and put Alfred Korzybski in the paragraphs. That would violate the principles of Wikipedia and I think be unethical for us as well. There's an article in Wikipedia called What Wikipedia Is Not, and it's not a place to promote things. That said, it would be a very responsible edit to go into the article and document some of the things that he did and Huxley did and said that in Marty's words, mirror general semantics. There's content in Marty's article that talks about his endorsement of the principle of non-allness, his promotion of delayed reactions, his belief in non-identity, the credit he gives to the silent level. He characterizes the world as a space-time continuum. That's all in Marty's article. And it's very possible to go into that Huxley article, introduce those changes responsibly, and once it's there, it's going to change. It's going to grow a little bit over time, which leads me to the topic generally of collaborative writing. one, Nora Miller, probably half the people here know who Nora Miller is. In 2005, she had an article in etc. She was the assistant editor at that time, that whose title was Wikipedia and the Disappearing Author. So if you do Wikipedia editing, you aren't going to be recognized. You get no boost to your personal profile. It's a tough thing, I think, for academics who are striving to build their careers. But another problem, I'll call it a problem until you can kind of figure it out, it has to be that way, with collaborative editing is you can put something in and somebody else comes along and changes it. You know, you thought you had the perfect phrase, somebody else bungles and messes it up. Well, the hope is, the optimistic hope, that over time we'll tend towards higher and higher quality. That's what we're intending to do. Now, the kinds of Wikipedia editing that we can do, there's editing substantive content. There is great need for copy editing and collaborative writing. We have poor structure in articles, very weak transitions, more articles in English than the combined articles in French, Spanish, and Italian put together. There's no reason why it ought to be that way. You can upload audio and video to your article. I noticed that in July of this year, someone took the 26-minute clip of Bob Pula's interview about 3 months before he died and put it into the Wikipedia article on Pula. That makes that article so much more significant for somebody who wants to know who he was. I want to show you the great advantage, I think, is that if you do Wikipedia editing, you can do as much or as little as you want, and you can do it at whatever time, day, or hour that you want. Further type of editing that you can do, I want to demonstrate this quickly just to show you how easy it is inserting links. There's a help on the left-hand margin where it says how to edit, and you can find it there. Let's suppose we're in the Huxley article again. Huxley had a 15-year friendship with Judah Krishnamurti, and it says here that he wrote the introduction to Krishnamurti's quintessential statement, the first and last, and I'm not even seeing it here with all the faces, but there's no, there is an article to this Krishnamurti book. What's we not seeing is that the first and last freedom is not linked. But if we go into the editor and we put in brackets before and brackets after, oops, it's not brackets. Brackets after, we can go down. I'm pretty confident I'm not going to do the preview. I'm just going to say publish the change. And it says the edit was saved. And now if we go back to the article, we just made a change to an article. Okay, the first and last freedom. Now we could click on this and we would go to the Krishnamurti book article, which actually has a link to the entire Huxley introduction. So I want to conclude with this, please. Let me get out of here. And go back to this. Learn to edit. You can see tutorials and such. Editing Wikipedia, it's a way to leverage knowledge and values. It puts COVID's extra screen time to good use. And those of you who are practicing academics, at least would you please consider assigning as credit work to your students that they do editing in Wikipedia. Corey Anton in his AKML Friday gave me something that I think is a fitting conclusion, and that is, if you aren't going to do this, just trash this, flush it, get rid of the information you're not acting upon. Otherwise, just do it. Thank you.